Trinidad H. Pardo de Tavera Lectures. I am Vincent Christopher A. Santiago, your Master of Ceremonies. We are glad that you have all joined us today, and we would like to acknowledge the presence of our faculty, our students, and the members of the UP community. On this day, the 26th of March 2025, we commemorate the 100th death anniversary of Trinidad Hermenegildo Pardo de Tavera, founding chairman of the Department of Oriental Languages in the University of the Philippines in 1923. This is the precursor of our department, the UP Department of Linguistics. We are privileged to have the chance to listen to two distinguished scholars whose work tackled the life and legacy of Pardo de Tavera. The first talk will be by Professor Maria Mercedes G. Planta of the Department of History, University of the Philippines, Diliman. Her research is on the history of medicine in colonial Southeast Asia. She is the author of Traditional Medicine in the Colonial Philippines, 16th to the 19th century, which won the award Best Book in Science in the 37th National Book Awards of the Philippines in 2018. So we actually have copies of this book in the venue, and if you are a follower of UP Press, alam nyo na yung i-add to cart ninyo pag nag-sale sila sa Christmas. Aside from that, it's in the second printing, and there are, as I said, there are copies available here today. The following year, in 2019, she was appointed University Scientist 1 by the UP system, a distinction that recognizes and supports the development of science and technology and encourages and rewards scientific productivity. Dr. Planta is currently chair of the History and Geography section of the National Research Council of the Philippines and leads the Philippine Apothecarium Project, supported by the Forest Foundation Philippines, which aims to champion the preservation of local medicinal knowledge and the vital role of languages in preserving this knowledge. Friends, colleagues, let us welcome Professor Maria Mercedes G. Planta.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to thank the Department of Linguistics for giving me the privilege and the honor to deliver this lecture. My engagement with Pardo de Tavera dates back more than a decade ago with an invitation from the College of Science to, in celebration of the 150th death anniversary of Jose Rizal. In 2022, I delivered a lecture on Pardo de Tavera, a celebration of the 100 years of the Department of Linguistics. That lecture was published in the archive, and it's titled Cultivating Knowledge, H. Pardo de Tavera in Philippine Medicine and Flora. But more than these engagements in the academic and professional level with the Department of Linguistics, I am deeply honored to be part of this celebration. The Department of Linguistics, many of our colleagues know, has always been a second home to me. And over the years, I have thought about ways to make a professional engagement with the department. Ayaw lang talaga nila tanggapin because hindi naman ako linguistics. So, the occasion of the 150th death anniversary of Jose Rizal was a good opportunity, because in that lecture I discovered Pardo de Tavera was the first inaugural chairman of the Department of Linguistics. And since my work on traditional medicine, I also discovered that Pardo de Tavera wrote on Plantas Medicinales de Filipinas. So my wish to be officially part of this department is not necessarily contrived. So anyway, good morning everyone. I want to thank my colleagues for being here, Ma'am Becca for braving the travel from the great land of Antipolo, and everyone who is brave enough to get here despite our transport strike. So maraming salamat po. So Today, the title of my talk is about Pablo de Tavera and his vision for the Philippines. So this is the title of my talk, and this is my abstract. So, next slide please. This is a copy of my initial lecture. Next slide please. In the abstract that that probably you have read, Pablo de Tavera's work spans many different subjects. So in the 19th century, he was our foremost intellectual. Most of the time, we only think about Rizal. But if you are going to dig deeper, Pablo de Tavera stands tall over everyone in the 19th and the 20th century. So, next slide please. These are some of his works. Pablo de Tavera was a trained medical doctor, but he had many interests. At the basic level, these interests were intended to establish a structure, a disciplinary, academic, and cultural infrastructure that Filipinos may draw from in order to understand themselves, ourselves, and in order that in our quest for self-determination and independence, we have something to draw upon. So this is the theme of my talk today. So these are some of his works. Next slide, please. And next slide. So here is, next slide please. So this is one famous work of Pablo de Tavera, Biblioteca Filipina. He was one of the figures who established a corpus of knowledge through his collection of books on the Philippines, when Filipiniana, as we know it today, was still in its infancy, perhaps not even in the minds of everyone who studied the Philippines. So this Biblioteca Filipina contains 2,850 entries on the history, ethnography, linguistics, botany, zoology, history of publishing, and bibliography in the Philippines, published in 1903. So this is again, next slide please, for history majors, one of the most important texts to study the Spanish period is the work of Plasencia. Plasencia's work was discovered by Pablo de Tavera. Published, that he made a commentary on this work, which he published in 1892. So the manuscript of this work is the only copy in the convent of the Franciscan Fathers in Manila. Plasencia wrote these notes at the request of the governor, Don Santiago de Vera, who wanted to know the customs and laws of the Tagalogs for possible adjustment of the Spanish justice system for the Philippine Islands. This was discovered and made available by Trinidad Pablo de Tavera in 1892. One important work of Pablo de Tavera is his commentary on the Pedro Murillo Velarde map that he published in 1734. This map is very significant today, especially in light of our ongoing issue over the South China Sea. So here, I will draw first in, next slide please. Pablo de Tavera was commissioned as part of the Philippine Commission under the American rule to write about the Philippines. In 1903, the Americans put together a census of the Philippine Islands, and it is one of the most important fundamental sources for the study of Philippine history, not just in the American period, but in the tail end of the Spanish administration of the Philippines. Having been published in 1903, the data that is contained in the census not only pertains to the American period, but more importantly, to the Spanish period. Next slide, please. Today, when history majors, students of history, talk about the Philippines, they would always say the standard knowledge that the texts on the Philippines are not always about the Philippines. These are texts that talk about colonialism, that talk about the experience of colonial powers in our country. This is a position that students in our department would learn, but if you look at and read Trinidad Pablo de Tavera in 1903, he already articulated it. So let me read this to you. It is not an easy task to write a brief historical review of the Philippine Islands, when the object of the author is to give a truthful account of the principal historical events in the development of the economic, social, and political life of the country. The histories published in former times do not contain historical data related to the Filipino people, but are more in the nature of chronicles of the religious orders and statements of the doings of the governors of the archipelago. The more modern histories have not been prepared in an impartial spirit. The object of their publication appears to have been to glorify the Spanish system of colonization, and no attempt was made to present the facts. On the contrary, there was a tendency persistently to cover up the truth if its publication, in the opinion of the author, might hurt the self-love of the Spanish nation or detract in any degree from the prestige which the mother country should possess in these regions. In order, therefore, to write a historical review, the author must necessarily expand his field of investigation beyond the scope of books called histories and should consult the entire Philippine bibliography in order to understand past events and their latent influence on the present life of the Filipino or of the people. By this text, when I read this text, I made my own discovery of Pardo de Tavera, that students of history, these are the texts that we use. But with diligence, industry, hard work, and focus, we will realize that the knowledge that are being taught to us today are knowledges that are rooted in a stronger historical foundation and built on the scholarship of one of the most important and foremost intellectual of the 19th and 20th century Philippines. In this text of Pardo de Tavera, next slide please, he would talk about the Spanish period and the role of the friars in the administration of the Spanish period of the Philippines. But his discussion of the friars and their role in our country is very, more or less, is very professional, or very, shall say, very, not objective, but very matter of fact. This is what he said. History makes the friars responsible for the errors committed by the Spanish government in these islands, but it would appear that without the aid of the religious orders, it would have been impossible for Spain to have fulfilled, even to the extent she has, her promises of civilizing the Filipinos and of helping them to advance along the lines marked out by the European nations. Why is it important for me to express that Pardo de Tavera's treatment of the friars in the Philippines is very matter of fact? If you look at the history of Pardo de Tavera, he comes from a very prominent family. And he was part Spanish, he was part Portuguese, not only a prominent family, but an illustrious family of lawyers. But in the Cavite Mutiny of 1872, his uncle was one of those who was eventually exiled to Guam for participation in that so-called 1872 mutiny that the Spaniards, primarily the friars, had thought was intended to dismantle or to overthrow the Spanish government, which in fact was not necessary, was not really true. But that event in Pardo de Tavera's life changed him and his entire family forever. So Pardo de Tavera's family eventually relocated to France. His brother never set foot in the Philippines again, and it was only him who came back to the Philippines. But Pardo de Tavera is a controversial figure in Philippine history, much maligned because of his pro-American stance. But in the discipline of history, it is always important to look at the facts and to look at the records. And over time, it is possible to make a reading of a particular aspect of our history. So Pardo de Tavera, on his own, as an individual, has experienced the oppression of the Spaniards. He felt the changing social status of his family, and at some point he was considered a filibuster by the Spaniards. But it did not deter him from working with them. And it did not deter him from doing his job, which was to write the history of the Philippines and the role of the Spaniards, particularly the friars, in an almost, if not very impartial manner. So, next slide please. So, the friars have been made to bear the brunt of many shortcomings But if the other officials of the Spanish government had complied with their duties, even to the extent to which the friars complied with theirs, it is certain that history today would shift that burden of responsibility to other shoulders. The friars undoubtedly were responsible for many things, but they also should be credited with the attainment of certain results in the civilization of Filipino people, the credit for which is now denied them. The work of Pardo de Tavera in the Census of the Philippine Islands devotes a long section on the friars, but over and over you would read that Pardo de Tavera you will not get a sense of him manipulating data, making an overinterpretation of things, or even to assert things that are not necessarily correct, despite his own familial and personal experience. So just to give you a sense of how powerful the friars were. Next slide, please. So in 1820, there was a huge cholera epidemic. In fact, when you read about it, people would, in the records, they say today, if the traffic in Manila is caused by cars and jeepneys and buses, in EDSA, for instance, in 1820, there was traffic in Manila caused by so much deaths brought about by the cholera epidemic. The cholera epidemic was so virulent that when one is afflicted at 2 p.m., by 8 p.m. one can die. So in the age of the period when people did not know medicine, did not know the cause of cholera, had no idea of germs, so it was one of the most deadly disease. But in 1820, it was not just about cholera. In 1820, when the natives of Manila assassinated the foreigners, whom they accused of poisoning the water supply and bringing about an epidemic of cholera, until then unknown in these islands, it was the opinion of the public at large that the friars were the ones who had excited the people to rise against the foreigners, of whose advanced views the friars were intolerant. So by these texts of Pardo de Tavera, you would see how much the influence of these friars were and how they were almost the ones running this country. There was a famous assassination of Governor General Bustamante. History majors would know about it. There's a painting of the assassination of Bustamante in the original UP archives that you may want to see. UP Main Library archives when we finally get to have our library. But the assassination of Bustamante was not just a mere assassination. In the records, it was orchestrated by the friars, because when you look at the Spanish government, you have the Spanish government running the country, you have the friars that were even more influential than the Spanish government. So what is the whole take on this narrative of Pardo de Tavera? It is not only that we know how influential the friars were, how they would run the government, but how fractured the Spanish government was in this period of Philippine history. So you think you have a Spanish government that was very strong, that ran the country, but even the Spanish officials had no powers to police the friars, who were themselves breaking so many of their vows in terms of corruption, in terms of many things. So this is a photo of Most Reverend Domingo de Salazar, very famous because all his work was devoted to the betterment of the Filipinos. So if you are a history major, this one turning point in the whole Spanish period. So the Spanish period in the text of Pardo de Tavera involved three figures: the Spanish government, the friars, and the archbishop. And the archbishop could do nothing about the friars. The friars would always say, if you're going to police us, we would leave our parishes. And when we remember the purpose of the Spanish rule in the Philippines was to promote Christianity, the Spanish king could not do anything about it. He was too afraid that the Spanish mission in the Philippines will collapse. And so he tolerated the friars. From the time of Domingo de Salazar to the time of Basilio Tomas Sancho y Hernando de Santa Justa y Rufina. This bishop is very important because he was the one who made sure that the image of the Santo Entierro in Quiapo be brought to Quiapo. So now today we have the translacion because of his efforts and because it was him who approved the decree of King Philip that the Jesuits be banned in the Philippines. So the Jesuits, so you have the religious orders, or you have the friars, you have the Jesuits. The Jesuits were anti-religious friars. In many instances, they were an obstacle to the ambitions of the friars. And so you look at the Spanish period, even in just the small text of Padre de Tavera, it is impossible to think that the Spaniards lorded it over the Philippines. As simple as that. So the complexity of the Spanish colonial period in the in Philippine history. So here, so for 208 years, the friars had run of the entire country, despite the Spanish officials, despite the bishops. So 208 years. So what did Padre de Tavera? What was his take on all of this? Padre de Tavera ended up being very pro-American in the beginning of the American period in the country. And next slide, please. For Padre de Tavera's critics, his association with the Americans appears self-evident. Nevertheless, it is essential to acknowledge that Padre de Tavera's personal and familiar background, along with his observations of his fellow Filipinos' experiences under Spanish colonial rule, deeply influenced his political beliefs. As he himself stated, the Spanish, in the ultimate period of our relations with them, did not treat us as colonies, but like to have us treated as an integral part of the homeland. We were not a part of the Spanish colonies, but a part of the Spanish nation. Naturally, that created in us a sentiment of nationality, as we considered ourselves as a real part of the Patria Española. Personally, I was led to the consideration of how I might become useful to her, and during the Spanish epoch, I became acquainted with the errors of that administration, and for the benefit of my country, I wished to work together with the Spanish then in power in order to correct some of the abuses and modify the situation. For someone who has experienced oppression and have seen oppression up close and personal, Padre de Tavera managed to go beyond that experience and to look at the Spanish period and to look at the Spaniards as partners in the development of the Filipino nation, at least in the beginning. So, next slide please. The Philippines gave an example of a conquered people whose most intense preoccupation was to constitute itself in the quickest possible way as an independent nation. This mentality of the Filipinos was very natural and once manifested during the Spanish regime. The American domination was not imposed for good, but for tutorship. Its principal objective is to educate and make the Filipino capable of self-governance. So we should direct all our energies to the constitution of our nationality. Often, this attitude is called illogically ingratitude, but on the contrary, was it not this awakening to a sense of nationalism when we were offered the opportunity to educate ourselves for self-government, the most logical and national as well as natural? So, in the beginning, Padre de Tavera, again, worked with the Spaniards. That's why he was able to accomplish Plantas Medicinales de Filipinas. He earned a royal sponsorship from the Queen of Spain herself to undertake his research in the 19th century, despite his previous experience with the Spaniards. On the part of the Spaniards, recognizing the skill and of Padre de Tavera, also worked with him, and he was recognized by the Spanish government for his possible contribution not only to the Filipinos but also the Spanish government as a whole. Over time, Padre de Tavera, of course, would see the oppression that the Spaniards committed over and over again. And when the Americans came, he saw the possibility that perhaps there is a way to liberate the Filipinos. This is the context of his support of American rule. So in his legacy of ignorantism, El legado de ignorantismo, this is what he said. Until the coming of the Americans, education in the Philippines was always and exclusively religious under the direction of the Roman Catholic missionaries. The persistence of these old superstitions are proofs of the failure of religious education. Missionaries would perhaps attribute this to the supposed stubbornness of the Filipinos, a notion we shall concede to for politeness and to avoid contention. However, what matters is not their inability to eradicate these superstitions due to the perceived obstinacy of the Indio, but rather the extensive propagation of superstition over more than 3 centuries and how these missionaries inculcated these in his mind to the detriment of his mentality and his morality. For Padre de Tavera, the most important obstacle to the Filipino people and to the Filipino nation was the kind of education that predominated the country. It was not that it was only religious. It was the fact that it perpetuated a period of ignorantism. In what sense was this articulated by Padre de Tavera? Padre de Tavera expressed that when the Spaniards came, the rationale for religious education was to wean us from our superstitions, from all sorts of things, because we are a people with no institutionalized religion. But when the Christian doctrine, or Christianity, was brought to the Philippines, instead of weaning out our own superstitious beliefs, it actually supplanted those superstitions with other kinds of superstition, but this time under the guise of Catholicism. So we have all sorts of beliefs on saints. The Philippines is a country of many saints for all sorts of things. Saint for lost objects, saint for impossible things, saint for those who want to conceive, saint for ikatipunan, when you pray that you hope there's not going to be rain. So you go to a place in Katipunan, you offer eggs, and then you supplicate and ask that perhaps please don't let it rain tomorrow, March 26, because I'm going to have a lecture. So all those things. So for Padre de Tavera, you only supplanted one superstition after another. Next slide, please. And so finally, he said, I would like to make a statement. When I refer to the new generation, I do not mean only the young people educated in secular government schools, but rather all young people educated in contemporary ideas. This includes men and women of all ages who, casting aside the weight of ignorance, have embraced progressive values. They have transformed their mindset, modernized themselves, and have done so through the influence and example of American democracy. The changes, whether economic, moral, social, or political, that have shaped the Filipino people are undeniable and reflect progress. This progress, however, is not the result of ignorance, but rather the natural outcome of a system rooted in liberty, industry, hard work, and the logical principles that guide both our public education and our social life, that Padre de Tavera had thought were virtues of the American people. So for him, the Spanish government led to a centuries of ignorance. And so when the Americans came, there was hope for a better nation. And this is the platform of all his views of the American rule in the country. When Padre de Tavera, when the Americans came to the Philippines, Padre de Tavera was appointed as part of the Philippine Commission. The Philippine Commission had executive and legislative functions in the country, but it was significant because it was some sort of like the governing body prior to the establishment of formal American rule in the country. But what is important is that it was the first in Southeast Asia, a governing body that included colonial subjects. So there were 3 members of the Philippine Commission, all esteemed, who were part of the governing body of the Philippines under American rule. One was Padre de Tavera, Benito Legada, and Jose Ruiz de Luzuriaga. So for Padre de Tavera, the Philippines, him sitting as part of the Philippine Commission, was poised for better things, for things that the Spaniards had deprived us for 333 years. And at the heart of this possibility is education. So next slide, please. So he says, education is most effective when it instills a sense of responsibility in individuals through the unfettered exercise of reason, guiding them toward fulfilling their duties. This entails developing their willpower to overcome instinctual and emotional impulses that contradict rationality. The primary objective of education is to cultivate logical thinking and determination. empowering individuals to prioritize rational decision-making over personal desires. This form of lay education aims to equip individuals with the tools necessary to navigate a just path guided by reason. This is the aim of secular education, which is provided in what are often termed godless schools, or here in government schools. And the godless schools are the public schools that the Americans established in the Philippines, which the friars largely opposed, and they refer to those as godless schools. Next slide, please. This is what Padre de Tavera said: "I have not accepted American sovereignty for the pleasure of being under the domination of a foreign nation, but because I thought that such was necessary to educate us in self-government." But I need to reiterate that Padre de Tavera supported Spain, worked with Spain. At the turn of the century, he thought Spain, another 100 years with Spain, it's never gonna change. So when the Americans came, the impression of democracy, the ideals of rationality, liberalism, Padre de Tavera thought this is a chance for us to have a better way of life. And he thought that coming to the Philippines, Americans did not come to the Philippines as permanent settlers, but it was just a phase, a period of tutelage, one that we must learn from. In many instances, perhaps Padre de Tavera was also very naive, because when the Americans came, their colonial project in the Philippines was couched in the promise of benevolent assimilation. If you are my student, I will tell you there's no such thing as benevolent assimilation. It's either you are benevolent or you are assimilated. But in the period of the 1920s, someone as smart as Padre de Tavera also bought into it. Probably because there was no choice. For Padre de Tavera, he thought that the Emilio Aguinaldo government was also ridden with corruption. So he had no hope. You have a group of individuals who pushed for Philippine independence, the Philippine Revolution, but its aftermath was also less than ideal. Aguinaldo's complicity on the death of Bonifacio, issues of corruption, were also things that Padre de Tavera could not really take. And so even if Aguinaldo appointed him part of the Malolos Republic, he had eventually resigned because he thought the Baccarat was really like, it was just a sham. And so he imagined the Americans would bring us to a better state. So a lot of people would, of course, in Philippine history, Padre de Tavera was a really maligned figure. But perhaps for students of history, it is always important to look at the records, to look at the context, and to understand how Philippine history in the time of Padre de Tavera, how he understood how Philippine history was unfolding during his time. And one important thing that he said, of all Filipinos, I am the most Filipino. All my writings are for the interest, improvement, and progress of the Filipino people. They are writings which could not be of any interest to the French, Germans, Japanese, or any foreigners. And he was absolutely correct. So, of course, we like Jose Rizal. Rizal of his novels, all the myths about Rizal. Someone sent me an email. He was featured in Philippine News because he discovered 2 letters of Rizal that was mislabeled. And he sent me an email, and he read it. He was listening now. And our love affair with Rizal never stops. I mean, you would think it's the end of it, but over and over again, Rizal is being resurrected in many different ways, and always, the romantic idea of Rizal. Padre de Tavera is far from being romantic. If you read the preface of his Plantas Medicinales de Filipinas, he would say, I sent all these specimens to France, all those plant specimens, but I entrusted it to the care of someone who was stupid enough not to know what to do, and so all my specimens got lost, got damaged when it arrived in France, and so the entire project was useless because of the stupidity of one person. I mean, we all encounter all these sorts of things, but who in his right mind would really write it that way? No one. Only Padre de Vera, who has no patience for incompetence, probably who has no patience for... I mean, Rizal is your Renaissance man. He was into sports, he was into all sorts of intellectual activity, he wanted to develop himself physically, he wrote novels, he courted many women, he had all sorts of things. And I remember Paul Kramer wrote about Rizal in one trip. Rizal was riding a train, and in that coach he was seated with an American and a British, I think, if I remember correctly. And the American was just making so much comment of how dirty London was. And Rizal could not take it. And Rizal said, "Oh, perhaps you've never been out even in your own country because you don't have to go out of New York to see how filthy it is. So clearly you've never been anywhere." And Rizal wrote that at the time that he was saying it, he was thinking, in one sentence, the man defined the nation. So what do we make of it? So I was reading about it one afternoon, and I was like, alam mo, pag ikaw siguro, dinait ni Rizal, wala naman titira sa'yo. But, but he does it so beautifully. That is Rizal. Padre de Vera will not quote any words, will not make pretenses. He will tell you, you're really like stupid. So he went to the Philippines for his plantas medicinalis and also to get married. He married a Filipina. So I don't know what is really the more important motivation, to get married or to undertake his project. Today we all hear about a work-life balance. I don't think Padre de Vera believed in any of that, because by the volume of his work, the range of his subjects, I don't think he had one day of rest. But then, as we say, what makes you happy? Okay. So to conclude, Padre de Vera's vision for the Philippines was deeply tied to a sense of Filipino identity. He believed that the Filipino people had a unique national character, which had been forged through their historical experiences, particularly under Spanish rule. He famously remarked, while Padre de Vera acknowledged the mistakes of the Spanish administration, he also recognized the importance of his unique role in helping shape a Filipino national identity that would stand independently. His work was always oriented towards a future where Filipinos would be empowered by education, labor, and a shared sense of nationality. Padre de Vera, at the first decade of the 20th century, was already disillusioned with the Americans. Issues of corruption, human rights violation, even if such did not exist then. So, in 1909, he resigned from all of his position in the government. He passed away in 1925. Today we are celebrating his 100-year death anniversary. When I think about Padre de Vera, I would say that, Padre de Vera was only 67, I think, when he passed away. Had he lived longer, he would have been America's worst and most formidable critic. Padre de Vera did not work with Americans because it was something that he wanted to be understood American, even if that was what he campaigned for. But he thought it was a transition that was necessary. Padre de Vera did not like Filipinos who were idle, who were lazy, who did not go to work, who did not study, because he exemplified all these values, and he thought maybe from the legacy of the Spanish period, we can have a better way of life to the Americans through their notion of hard work, punctuality, concept of a public good that the Spaniards never taught us. So Padre de Vera's vision for the Philippines was one that combined intellectual rigor, a strong work ethic driven by a profound belief in the potential of the Filipino people. His support for secular education, commitment to labor, and pragmatic political outlook all played a crucial role in his broader vision of a self-determined, empowered Filipino nation. For Padre de Vera, the the quest for self-determination was not just about rejecting foreign rule outright. It was about creating a Filipino nation that could stand on its own intellectually, economically, and politically. And so he built this body of work that Filipinos may draw from and be proud not only of our roots, but use this work to advance ourselves and to prepare for a period of independence. His vision of self-determination was rooted in knowledge and hard work, and he believed that achieving true independence required the development of a strong intellectual and cultural foundation. A critical reassessment of Padre Vitolera's legacy allows us to see a more nuanced and multifaceted figure, a man who was committed to the betterment of the Filipino people, not through abstract ideals, but through a practical and grounded approach to education, labor, and nation building. Thank you so much.